Good afternoon, everybody. Can we all hear me, please? Please kindly indicate if you can hear me by replying my greetings. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Hussein Mahadi, and I will be moderating our session today on legal development of FinTech. Today is the first week of the first quarter of JIIPCC Mentorship and Internship program on FinTech. Can you all hear me clearly?
Yes, we can. I can.
Yes, we can.
Right. Thank you very much.
Yes, we can.
Okay. So quickly, I'll be introducing the program to us all, and also
You're on mute.
meant to hope that our groups, Group 1 and Group 2, are currently preparing for their presentation. The presenter and person sharing the script will be on standby. Quickly, I'll be taking the announcements first. So the first announcement is the registration for the next quarter of JIIPCC Mentorship Program is currently ongoing. The link has been shared to all your groups. You can share the link with your friends. For anybody that is interested in any of the programs we offer. Okay, it's there on the screen. So we have intellectual property, artificial intelligence, the energy industry, fintech, health tech and law, patent drafting, and blockchain, NFTs, and metaverse. These are the courses we offer at JIIPCC Mentorship and Internship Program. So if any of your colleagues is interested, kindly share the link with them to register for the next quarter of a mentorship and internship program. Secondly, the next announcement is that you can have a 30-minute one-on-one session with your favorite mentor for the session. The registration link is also available and will be shared on your group chats. So if you are interested in having a 30-minute one-on-one session to discuss any topic further with your favorite mentor for the session, it's available. Lastly, I'll be telling us about the program. Let me take the about the program later. I'll be sharing my screen right away. Okay. JIIPCC Mentorship and Internship Program is a quarterly program for students and young professionals across Africa. Mentees are afforded the opportunity to access valuable advice, training, network, mentorship, internship, discussion forums, industry updates, and resource materials from experienced mentors. The program seeks to encourage continuous training, development, and evolution in Africa and around the globe. You can watch our videos by searching for JIIPCC on YouTube and Facebook, hashtag JIIPCC And some of the objectives of the program is to provide easy access to quality professional guidance, training, and resource materials for students and young professionals in Africa, to facilitate dialogue and network among experienced and less experienced practitioners and stakeholders, to transform mentees into mentors and leaders for the next generation, and to facilitate further mentorship, internship, scholarship, and job placements for the mentees. This is what JIIPCC is all about, and those are our objectives for our mentees. So quickly, I'll be taking the mentors profile for today. I can see nobody's video is on. We are all encouraged to put our videos on during the session, please. We are being live streamed on YouTube. So you are all advised to put on your videos. Thank you very much. So I'll be taking our first mentor for today. Kindly hold on as I share my screen quickly. Okay. Our first mentor is Mr. George Onyewuchi. George currently heads FinTech engagements for First Bank and its subsidiaries across Africa and at its digital innovation lab, setting up and driving the bank's fintech strategy. George is a link that connects technology, business, and ecosystem partnership. He is at the intersection of products, partnership, and ecosystem building. He has led the tech solution product development for the SMEs banking business of a leading commercial bank and have taken numerous financial and non-financial products from idea to market and growth. He has led digital transformation in the client engagement processes for leading commercial banks, including one of the Nigerian banking industry first end-to-end account opening for corporate accounts and SME digital lending. His team has won numerous awards for powering growth of SMEs. He also provides advisory for Africa towards developing blockchain infrastructure and building the operating system for Africa business on blockchain and host knowledge sessions on blockchain applications to various industries within the African context. Thank you very much for joining us today, Mr. George Onyewuchi. We are so happy to have you on board. And our next mentor for today is Nowazi Hopi. Nowazi Hopi is the Deputy Director of Financial Regulation and Supervision at Digital Frontier and listed among the 60 African women experts in FinTech 2022 by African Shaper. She is a former regulator, having worked for the Central Bank of Swatini, CBE, within the Financial Stability Unit, and moving on to establishing the FinTech units as a project with the CBE, which she managed and oversaw the development and finalization of the CBE's first regulatory sandbox guidelines. Nowazi is an experienced financial regulation, macroprudent and microprudential supervision specialist, and she is passionate about innovations in the financial sector, especially their potentials to leave no one behind. Her expertise also lies in payment systems, central bank digital currencies, data privacy and protection, inclusive green finance, and gender inclusive finance, where technological innovations have the opportunity to exponentially contribute to those in positive ways towards the SDGs. Thank you very much for joining us today, Ms. Nowazi Hopi. And finally, today, our last mentor for today is Mr. Joseph Obo. Joseph Obo is the leading expansion project for foreign partnership for Nigerian company, an online company registration platform, which presently has delivered over 1,500 incorporations for clients both in Nigeria and abroad. He is presently the group board secretary of Bethsaida African Development PLC, an investment and financial service company based in Nigeria. He is the mentor and moderator for the FinTech JIIPCC Mentorship and Internship program. Joseph has an LLM in Information Technology and Telecommunication Law from Strathclyde University, Glasgow, Scotland, and has attended several courses across Europe, Asia, and Africa. He also consults for companies on boardroom matters. Thank you very much for joining us today, Mr. Joseph Obo. So quickly, the next thing we are moving on to is calling on out to our mentors to give us a talk about the topic for today, which is legal developments for FinTech. So our first mentor for today is Ms. Nowazi. You have the floor to tell us about the topic.
Okay, thank you so much, Hussein. I'm quickly going to share my screen. My presentation will be short, and then I'll hand the floor back to you.
Okay, ma'am.
Please let me know once you can see my screen.
Yeah, we can see your screen, ma'am.
Thank you very much. So I'll quickly just touch on our various FinTech segments. and then move on to what their main challenges are, or rather move on to how they interact with the legal side and why how that is, and then lastly I'll touch on their challenges and how. Can you hear
I can't
me?
hear anything.
Yes.
And then lastly, I will touch on how regulators are working towards ameliorating some of these challenges. Even though, as we know, regulation is a necessary condition to enable fintech, but it is not a sufficient condition to enable it. So, I mean, across Africa, we can see the following fintech segments where we all know that payments has taken up the largest proportion of them. Where we've seen mobile money take payments by storm throughout Africa, which is the main entrance into the financial system. So payments has taken the largest scope in fintech and has been the biggest player in trying to engage with the regulators, the law policymakers, and lawmakers in general, and how to give them more flexibility to allow more people to be included within the financial services market. So I'm trying to adjust my laptop so I can be closer to the mic and be more audible. So moving on. So as we all know, technological advancements have transformed the financial services sector and are making it cheaper, faster, and making it a more inclusive experience for all individuals, those underserved, excluded, and those at your typical financial institutions like your banks and so on were not interested in serving. However, this has made the relationship between the fintechs, businesses in general, like your established banks, and the law more complex, because these innovations come where a law for them may not exactly be established. And so now regulators need to find synergies, need to learn from them to develop regulations that are bespoke or fit for that type of segment in the fintech ecosystem. So in developing these laws, these are the top legal issues that fintechs are currently facing. They are still growing as technology is still evolving, but mainly, especially now in the world of digital transformation, we see that data protection and cybersecurity, as most of you are in law, data protection and cybersecurity is becoming a significant legal issue for fintechs. How are they working around ensuring that as much as consumers have a convenient experience, that they're not compromising their data protection or privacy, and that their data will be adequately protected with sufficient cybersecurity measures? Another thing is distributed ledger technologies, or as you may be more familiar with, blockchain and smart contracts. This is consumer data being stored on public ledgers. How is that protecting data privacy? Again, going back to that, how can the ledgers be made more private, or maybe a hybrid approach where it's accessible to the provider and the regulator per se? These are questions that need to be considered by the fintechs, as this is another legal issue. Again, robo-advisors. We've seen the explosion of ChatGPT and how that can be a good addition to robo-advisors. But now, how do you regulate that to make sure that consumers are protected and given the correct information that they need for their query? So that's another legal issue that fintechs are facing. And also outsourcing their core banking or payment systems work to the public cloud. Sometimes those clouds are not adequately protected with their own cybersecurity measures. And so that brings the question to, if you're outsourcing your core banking network or core payment systems work to the cloud, how protected are your consumers? Back to protecting your consumers at the end of the day. And then lastly is biometric authentication using fingerprint recognition. We're all familiar with this, I think by now, on our cell phones, where logging into your bank app, it just asks for your fingerprint. this is not 100% secure, because what if you're asleep and I want to add myself as a beneficiary? I just take your phone, I take your finger, I add myself, add your finger, and then I send all your money to myself. So it's another legal issue to that biometric companies that are working on this are still trying to grapple with to ensure security. But it's not a bleak environment that we're in, because regulators are also coming to the party. They're starting to have a paradigm shift, in the sense that they no longer want to be seen, I'm speaking as a former regulator here, as just the policeman, but they want to be seen as the enabling policeman. Because 51% of fintechs, as shown from a statistic from 2022, that 51% of fintechs fail in the first 5 years because of not taking regulatory conditions seriously, or not engaging with regulators to make sure that they're adhering to some form of regulatory guidelines. And where they do not exist, they're not engaging with them to test their work in a form of innovation facilitator that the regulator may have. Because as we're seeing around the world, there has been an explosion of regulatory innovation facilitators, like your regulatory sandboxes, your innovation hubs, your updates to regulations to accommodate these fintechs. So maybe issuing a new license, like our founding M-Pesa, where they just let them go and they use the test and learn approach to say, okay, go ahead, M-Pesa, we'll let you run in the country with a limited population and learn how to regulate you. And also having office hours, like what the IFWG is doing in South Africa, with having saying, at this time we're available to anyone, fintechs, individuals, for you to ask us any questions to clarify any regulations in place that you do not understand with respect to your fintech. So this is how we can, within the legal environment for fintechs, enable them identify the legal issues and just see what the legal landscape around them is. I think that's a good start to stimulate the conversation with our other mentors in the room. Thank you, Hussein.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nawazi. We would have loved you to continue, but you said you just want to take the
Yeah,
presentation.
because my time was limited, so I want to make sure I don't talk too much.
Okay, you are still going to make some comments on
Yes.
the mentee's presentation. Okay, thank you very much. So we'll call on Mr. George to also give us some insights about the topic, legal development of fintech.
Okay, hi. I don't know if can you hear me well? I'm
Yes,
kind of on the
can
move.
hear you.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I'm on the road actually. All right, cool. And very, very sound comment from Nawazi. I hope I got the name right. I didn't murder that name. Nawazi, right? Yeah. Well done. I mean, very apt presentation. I mean, when we talk legal and we talk fintech, first of all, that's the part of that's one part the fintech guys don't like to don't like to hear. I mean, they could as well not deal with it because to them it's like a whole lot of hassle, right? You can't talk fintech without talking compliance, and you can't talk compliance without talking legal. Of course, the legal development of fintech, like the topic say, there's some key things that as a fintech, or if you're looking to play in the fintech space, you have to deal with, and this creates an opportunity for legal entities or legal professionals to be the ones guiding these fintechs as service providers to help them or lead them through the paths to fulfill this. Data privacy is a huge issue in this space. I think I also heard when Nawazi mentioned it. Increasingly, the Nigerian space and then the African space have increasingly started to catch up on the importance of data privacy. And increasingly, you've seen a lot of laws that have now been coming up to mandate some form of data privacy checks on fintechs. In Nigeria, we have the NDPR, where fintechs are mandated, when you're playing at a particular level, you're mandated to do what they call a data audit, right? Every year. And that data audit also comes, has to be carried out by a professional certified to carry that out. And most those professionals are also very much lawyers that are trained in the data world and then registered with the commission. So data privacy is a very major issue because how you collect user data, how you store user data, and then how you use user data is a very critical part of the whole fintech infrastructure, the whole fintech industry. So that is very key. Next, or even more than data privacy, is licensing regime. That is another major area when it comes to legalese that the fintechs have to deal with, which they also need a lot of hand-holding, from legal entities. It's a chicken and egg situation with licensing because most of the startups, at the time when they're starting their companies, a lot of them don't have the requisite structure and capital, right, to acquire these licenses, right? So most of them start up, almost all, 95% of them start up without having this license. So some go through extended licenses where they partner with guys that have these licenses. Some go to just start, push out that product out there and hope that they can get enough traction in good time so that they can be able to raise some money and go after those licenses before the regulators come after them, right? But a lot of times, the easier part is find who has a license and find some sort of partnership so that they can extend their licensing cover to you, pending when you will have the right structure and capacity to get your license. So various licensing requirements or various licensing regime, it's mandatory for different kinds of fintech. I think Nawazi also tried to show, the various subsectors or various areas that you can play as a fintech, and each of these areas, whether it's lending, whether it's insurtech, whether it's just about any savings, just about any of them have different licensing requirements, that you have to have, to be able to embark on these things and comply to regulatory requirements. And of course, who else knows better about these that can provide guidance are legal professionals like you that have equipped themselves to understand these different licensing requirements and how they interface with whatever it is that the fintech is doing to provide that guidance. So licensing is key. And another one I'll talk about is very critical. I think Joseph is one of the things, the areas Joseph plays in from the intro that I saw, is how you help fintech scale. This week alone, I think I've been in two meetings with some potential partners outside the country, where I was actually trying to create and facilitate some strategic partnership for some fintech. And one of the recurring issue was about the fact that they couldn't, for the kind of services those fintech wanted, they couldn't support them without them having legal entity in the country of their jurisdiction. In this case, it was Europe, right? So the licensing arrangement over there couldn't allow them to support the guys in Nigeria. So they required the guys that they can only help them if they have presence in Europe. So increasingly, you will see that a lot of fintechs that want to scale, a lot of fintechs that want to get into some form of partnership with their foreign counterparts are limited because of the jurisdiction of their license, right? And because of this, you see a lot of fintechs setting up companies or setting up holding companies in various markets. And this is a huge opportunity in this space because as you, as legal professional, right, right here today, maybe people like Joseph, if a fintech want to set up shop, right, in any other country, most of the guys playing in that space are the non-service providers that are not indigenous, that are non-Nigerians, right? So I have to start looking at these companies that will help you set up these Delaware shops and the rest of them. But this is an opportunity where, our legal professionals can reach out and create strategic partnership and a kind of a one-stop shop, right? Where I'm a company, I want to enter a kind of relationship with a fintech in Europe or in America or even within Africa. I don't have to have the hassle, to start looking for how to set up shop there. I don't even need to set up shop there in some cases. I already have this legal entity that I could just work with, and they would be like the guys that I would ride on their infrastructure, and they handle everything end to end, right? Give me the legal
I can't hear Mr. George. Are we all hearing?
No.
Okay, I think we lost him on the call, and will be joining us.
Can you hear me now? Sorry, I got caught up for a minute.
Yes,
Can you hear me
hear
now?
you. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. So I was saying, so right now the industry has matured, and where we at the place where we are now, where anybody that's getting into the tech space, one of the first things you're thinking about is how do I become compliant? What are the things that affect the industry and the market that I want to serve to become compliant? And that brings me to the last part of my comment is, what is your role in the tech value chain, as legal professionals? One of the things, and this is speaking to the audience now, here, one of the things that as you're training to be a lawyer and as you're training to also play in the fintech space, you need to quickly define what your role will be. What do you want to be? The legal space, the fintech space is massive. And the more you show that you have domain expertise in it, the more that you get attracted to fintechs. One very good opportunity we have here is the fact that fintech founders don't want to deal with legal. They don't. It is one of the first things they want to take off their shoulders, like just get it done, right? So it means that for every single fintech out there are a few legal professionals that they are handshaking with, to help them sort out, legal issues. So you need to start asking yourself, do I understand this space enough to decide what I want to do? And when I've decided what my role is going to be, am I going to be the guy that helps this guy move from one country to set up shop in another country, and strike strategic partnerships? Am I going to be the guy? Am I going to be the legal professional that makes sure that this guy is data compliant or data privacy compliant? Do I want to be the expert, like in making sure that this guy is licensing compliant? Do I want to be the guy that makes sure that he gets all the agreements that he does right? Like I want to be, a partnership, a legal partnership expert. Do I want to be the guy that makes sure that they fundraise when they are fundraising, they are well protected? I want to be a funding expert, or on the fintech side. So understanding the space enough to determine what your role will be in the value chain is critical, to you thriving as a legal person in the fintech play. But today, the opportunity is here because you can't talk fintech without talking compliance. And you can't talk compliance without talking lawyers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. George, for giving us that very much comprehensive clarity on fintech compliance and how to start up a fintech. I'll be calling on Mr. Joe to also give us some contribution if he has any, before we move on to group's presentation from the mentees.
Thank you very much, everyone. I hope I'm as audible as possible.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nawazi. Thank you, Mr. George. Nobody's too big for learning, so I've also seen this as an opportunity for me to also learn as well from the presentations before mine. I will try not to repeat what has already been said, but the first statement basically that I'll make is that with my interaction with a lot of tech stars who want to venture into the fintech space, many of them come to the table with a sole proprietorship mindset. Basically, what I mean is they start out sometimes by thinking that they might be able to go the long haul alone. But from my interactions, like I said earlier, I've realized that within the fintech space, you definitely have to be coming to the table, even from a structural or from a legal perspective. You have to be coming to the table as a team. It's not something that, okay, maybe you have the major idea, maybe you want to operate a digital bank, for example, or a payment service, or maybe you have a wealth tech product, whatever the product or service is that you want to take into the market. You would definitely have to come under the right legal structure. So basically, from country to country across Africa, there are different company registration requirements, but the most important one basically has to do with the limited liability company. In Nigeria, for example, also in Ghana, which we've also interfaced with clients in Ghana as well, we've realized that the legal regime is almost very similar. So when you are engaging in terms of having to have a fintech company registered, you would have to come to the table under a limited liability arrangement. Another factor too that makes it quite difficult for fintechs to actually sprout up has to do with the share capital requirement for engaging within the fintech space. In Nigeria, for example, you would see registration costs, go up in the millions just to even have the entity registered. You find out that for payment services, for example, it's a minimum of 100 million shares. So a startup founder who's just at the ideation stage, just dealing with all the ideas, trying to put a team together, trying to put the whole puzzle together, and also having to think of the financial commitment to get the entire structure legally recognized and started. The person or the team would also have to be dealing with issues that border on having the finance to be able to give the idea some form of legal status. Then also, Mr. George mentioned instances where fintech companies have maybe those who are looking for some sort of funding across Europe, the US, even Asia. They might be required to have some sort of presence in the countries where they would be requiring those funding from. We've dealt with many of those cases where companies definitely have to, maybe in the US, you're looking for funding, you're thinking of you have to register a company, maybe in Delaware, for example. That company would almost act as a holding company, so that even when you are doing in fact, for most of these clients, the companies are actually registered abroad first. They are registered maybe in the US first. After that registration is done, the US company would now maybe own almost all of the shares within the Nigerian entity that is being registered, or even in Ghana, for example. So it's almost the same mindset that companies actually have, especially when you are looking out for funding and probably you want to scale your business and you want to be able to provide cross-border services within that regard. So in terms of the licensing, it could be expensive. But like I said, it's always better to approach this from the mindset of having to plug in several partners within the business frame. So that would definitely impact on whether you're doing a business either as a sole founder or you have co-founders that are actually thinking about the growth of the business, and not just a one person coming to the scene. You may not really achieve achieve much in that regard. Then from the regulatory standpoint, you also find that, like Mr. George also said, companies don't want to have to, think about the legal aspects of having to engage with regulators. It's the reason why we've had cases where some Nigerian companies, or one particular Nigerian company that had some corporate governance issues, I guess it was in Kenya. It's still all about the regulatory, having to interface or having to move through all the regulatory loopholes and bottlenecks, as the case may be. That's one area that startup founders or lawyers too can also engage and put themselves out as being able to provide solutions within that area. So finally, what I would say finally is that you must realize that you need to have the right legal structure. You need to engage the right lawyers. It's not just any lawyer that can actually delve into the sector. Some lawyers might be good with criminal law, but they have basically absolutely zero ideas about what's really happening within the fintech space. If you hear them talk about it, you might feel that, okay, they understand what's really going on. It's actually a very broad area, the data privacy aspect of it, the cross-border data issues. There are a whole lot of data-related issues, KYC issues, how the law relates to that, a whole lot of issues around it. So my approach, as with George's approach, basically is you have to choose the area of the pie that you'll be willing to fit into, so that you don't play, the jack of all trade, master of none. But if you have what it takes, why not? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Joe, for your contribution on the discussion. I'll be calling on the mentees to make their presentation also before our mentors will make comments on it. But quickly, I would like to tell everybody that I think Ms. Nowazi shared her PowerPoint presentation on the chat box, so you can download from there. That's for all our mentees now on this call. So I'll be calling on group one quickly. You have 10 minutes to present. Please be brief. Group one presenter, if you are ready, kindly unmute yourself and share your screen.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Anolu Akorowa. Today, I'm presenting on behalf of Group 1 for legal framework of FinTech. I'll be sharing my screen now. Sorry. Okay. So legal developments of FinTech in Nigeria. Basically, FinTech is like an innovation, and we all know that the world is evolving, and then technology are evolving also. So how technology come into our financial state, that is what the FinTech is all about. So we have background for our FinTech. The background for FinTech is like the generally financial status in Nigeria is regulated by the Central Bank of Nigeria. So they are in charge of all regulatory, they are the regulatory body in charge of all financial service in Nigeria, whether microfinance bank, insurance, and other financial service in Nigeria. And then we also have the Nigerian Deposit Insurance Corporation. Also, they are also part of the people that regulates the financial part of Nigeria. Now, in terms of technology, since we are evolving into technology in the financial sector, in terms of technology, the new regulatory bodies have to come in. So this brings us to Nigeria Data Protection Regulation. These are the people, these regulators, their own major part is to protect our privacy and our data. It is just for them to protect the consumer data in the way the service provider regulates this information they get from the consumer, how they process the information, and how they use this information, or who they share this information to, technically third parties. And then we have NDPR also. NDPR is the Nigeria Data Protection. Sorry. Now, these are the bodies that are protected. Also, we have NOTAB. NOTAB is also another part that protects technology transfer in Nigeria. Every company that deals with technology in Nigeria has to register with NOTAB in Nigeria also. So the legal issue comforting FinTech in Nigeria, our mentor has mentioned it earlier, but we added 2 more to it. So we have data privacy. This means that our what the quantity of consumer data this service provider collects, how they process this data, how they guarantee this data, and how they secure this data on behalf of the consumer. And then we have cyber attack. This is same thing as cyber security that our mentor mentioned earlier. Cyber attack include ransomware and other cyber security issues. And then we have money laundering. Basically, in all this, one thing about FinTech is that there is not much encampment on the type of transaction one can make on this FinTech app. So therefore, most transactions that occurs on this FinTech app are usually in terms of money laundering, because you can transfer a huge amount of money, and this money, there's not an encampment for how you can use it and who you can transfer your money to. You have free access to control your money as you like. So these are the issues that affect the FinTech in the long run currently. Now, current trend are innovation driving FinTech. Application program interface. This is basically our user interface, our UI UX, our user experience and user interface, how your app is designed, how the user are able to use the consumer are able to use this app and understand the basic usage of your app. And then we have cloud computing. The cloud computing is also like a CRM that manage our consumers' data, secure it, and process the data. And then we have regulation, technology, mobile banking, payment system, artificial intelligence. As we all know that the technology is moving on, and then we have artificial intelligence, which practically acts on our behalf, thinking on our behalf. As long as we input our data and every of our basic needs on it, then it acts on our behalf. And we have blockchain, blockchain and cryptocurrency. Next up, we have key regulators and functions. So we have Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. These are like the is the federal government regulator which regulates the consumer and the consumer law and protect the consumer also in case of exploitation by the FinTech company. And then we have the insurance, Nigeria Deposit Insurance Company, NDIC. These are basically to ensure the financial service for liability and any other risk that might occur in the future. Then we have the National Office of Technology Acquisition and Protection, NOTAB. I mentioned it earlier. They basically, NOTAB is for every company in Nigeria that deals with technology. So in case of there is a need for transfer of technology from Nigeria to another country, it is certain from NOTAB that we use to actually be able to do that. And then we have CAMA. We have CAMA because all things. Okay, I can't get that. Okay, additionally, we have CAMA because CAMA is a general regulatory body for all companies registered in Nigeria. So it guides the law of all companies. And as a FinTech company, you come in as a FinTech service provider, you come in as a registered company, an incorporated company. Therefore, you are deemed as a legal entity on its own. So CAMA also will regulate their laws in terms of their corporate governance and other stuff there. Then we have regulation guiding Nigeria FinTech companies. CBN guideline and regulation, CAMA, Investment and Security Act, Nigeria Data Protection Regulation, and EFCC Act. As I've said earlier, these are the laws that guide. EFCC work in terms of the money laundering issues. And then we have case law that has actually established that FinTech companies that also that established FinTech company as a legal entity. in US, actually, not Nigeria case. So there, and then we have one for San Francisco, one in US, Madden and Midland Funding LLC. And then we have Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Yeah, that's all for our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anolapo Babatunde, for that wonderful presentation on behalf of Group 1. So I'll be calling on Group 2 to also make their presentation. You have 10 minutes. Anolapo, you can unmute yourself now. You can mute yourself, sorry. Thank you very much. Our presenter for Group 2, please, you can unmute yourself, share your screen, and start your presentation. You have 10 minutes. Who is the presenter for Group 2, please? Are you on the call? Who is the group leader for Group 2? Any Group 2 member can step in to help. Okay, while we are waiting for the Group 2, Ms. Nwazi, you can make your comments on the Group 1's presentation.
Sorry. Yes. Thank you so much for your presentation, Anu from Group 1. I want to commend you on touching on the key points. Okay, I'll find a way to wipe my camera. And I like that you touched on the key regulators, and the key thing that you mentioned, that I want to bring up something that was it George that mentioned that was very important on licensing on your presentation, that I think is very important to remember and highlight, because as you're studying law and you bring it up and you're proposing working with fintechs, one of your key roles in the compliance side is working together with the fintechs so that they don't worry about which license should they get, especially because they don't know exactly what license they need to get for their specific business function, especially if it's new and there's no specific guideline or license for them under the CBN. So you find that you'll end up engaging in a lot of meetings with the CBN to come to an agreement. I speak of this because I won't mention the company, but I'm one of the board members, and I'm interacting a lot with the regulator, working with them to find us a license for the company that will help us operationalize a lot of our functions within the company in that specific country. So I'm working a lot with the compliance team and advising them how to approach them, because regulators are a different kind of animal. They're not your they're not your normal working with another business. They want to be approached with, coming with a lot of reverence, a lot of respect, and you find that their argument as to why fintechs feel like they always say no is that the approach that fintechs come with is that we know everything and you know nothing, and that's why there ends up being a lot of friction. But overall, I think your presentation was excellent. You covered all the required scope, and thank you for that. I just wanted to bring this to front of mind on the licensing aspect, and the fact that it requires a lot of stakeholder, complex stakeholder management, not the one that you're used to with working with with the fintech, your colleagues in the law firm, and maybe other businesses that you're engaging with. because regulators, especially the central bank, quasi-government, so you're not engaging with government, you're engaging with an autonomous institution who are used to being like God-like, and they have all the power to say, yes, your business can grow, or give us more information, delaying the process of when the business can finally run its desired operations. And sometimes the businesses or the fintech doesn't have enough capital to keep on waiting and waiting and waiting, and it might shut it down. So approach is very important when engaging with the regulators. But thank you. Thank you so much. It was a very excellent presentation.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nwazi. I'll be calling on Mr. George to also give us some comments on that.
Okay. Yeah, just like Nwazi mentioned, it was quite a spot-on presentation because I mean they were able to touch on quite a good number of the parts around the subject matter. But just a quick correction on something. CAMA is not a regulator, as she mentioned. CAMA is an act, it's a law, the Companies and Allied Matters Act, right? The regulator that oversees or midwives CAMA is the CAC, the Corporate Affairs Commission, right? The commission is the regulator, the CAC, not CAMA. CAMA is the abridged name for the law that empowers the CAC, right, to register companies, right, and of course give companies that legal right to become an entity on themselves. So just to correct that part. And then lastly, I think I saw on your slide that you had case studies, even though probably you were short for time, or you just didn't touch up on them. But I saw something like case studies there. I wanted to, really listen to hear what your case studies were going to be focusing on. Because one of the things about case studies and why I like case studies is because they bring a lot of these things into reality. And that is the interesting part, really, of being a legal professional, right? When you start bringing, these things into actual real life occurrences or experiences. So it would have been nice to really bring out the case study that you had captured on your slide for us to understand what part of your presentation or what part of this entire whole chain were you trying to let us know, or look at what case were you trying to let us look at, and what lesson or what understanding did you want to drive, with that case that you wanted to bring out. So I think it's something that probably if other guys have case studies in their slide, to also be very out with it so that we can really learn. That's where a lot of learnings really happen, because no two cases are the same, and then we get to see how some of these things actually play out in real life scenarios. But other than that, it was a good presentation. So well done to the team.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. George, for the correction and comments. I will also be calling on Mr. Joe to also make his comments and correction. But before that, Group 2, I don't know if you are ready right now. You can start your presentation right now. Group 2, are you with us? Any group member from Group 2 can present on behalf of your group, because I learned that you actually came up with the presentation together, you did research together, so anybody can present if the presenter is having network issues. Is anybody ready to present for Group 2? Okay, I'll just move on to Mr. Joe. Mr. Joe, you can give us your comments on Group 1's presentation.
All right, thank you so very much, Anu. It was a good presentation, well researched. The reality is that in researching FinTech, there is actually so much so much at stake. If it's only the CBN regulations that you even want to focus on, that alone can take you would invest so much time in even understanding what those regulations speak to, the specific scenarios that they relate to, and the policy changes once in a while, and policy adjustments as the case may be. So I would just only say that in researching this area of fintech, it's personally, I like to specialize. I do a lot of things on specialized basis. If somebody were to walk up to me now and you start talking about criminal law, or maybe you're talking about land law, for example, you might not really have. I might just talk generally. I might not say so much, but I know that there's a company that we've been trying to secure a SEC license for since last year. I know how much the company has actually spent just in interfacing with, the regulators in terms of all the requirements. Once in a while, you might think that you've actually had everything sorted out. Somebody comes up with one regulation that was made maybe years ago. You need to comply with this. You now have to now change almost your entire plan. The stakeholder engagement, like Nwazi mentioned, is something that is also very key in trying to get anything from the regulator, because they can if you don't adopt the right approach in getting things done, what may have taken other people maybe 6 months to get, in 24 months, you are still in the entire bureaucracy, in the rigmarole of the process. So it's very good to actually have that in mind. I know for one that even in dealing with the central bank, for example, in Nigeria, beyond the payment licenses, the microfinance, in fact, there are a whole lot of things: money lending, mobile money, there are different regulatory, there are different areas where the intervention of the regulators is actually key. But one thing I would actually advise, like I tell fintech companies, the ones that are still upcoming, is the need for them to have an advisory board. You might necessarily not be paying so much, but just have that board system where you find people that are willing to invest their intellect, their networks, to help you to achieve, a little business advantage. Maybe as time goes on, you might begin to pay for that value. But it's very key that, companies that are delving into this fintech space consider the need for them to have a boardroom structure that can provide more beyond looking at the legal risk, the other risk factors, in the business, especially in terms of scaling. That board system is actually very key to be able to put, the founders on their toes and to make them focus on what is utmostly important. Because if you're not careful, you can have your eyes on a different ball than that which is actually important for you to be able to scale through all the regulatory and compliance requirements and all that with regulators. So that's very key. I know that there's a framework. There's this regulatory sandbox framework. Several countries adopt that. In the UK, for example, I've done that research. They have that system. It actually works. In Nigeria, I've read about the framework. I'm hoping to get more research as to how that system actually works in Nigeria, for example, and how effective it has been. It's a research I would actually give myself, because I haven't necessarily focused on that. But what I know basically is that within that sandbox frame, you necessarily did not mention it in your presentation, but I just want to touch on it. It kind of gives fintech companies, a soft landing within a specific period of time for them to be able to see whether that idea they have is actually market worthy, before they now start spending and putting in all the other infrastructure in place for them to actually scale their business or to move beyond, being within that sandbox environment. So by and large, thank you very much, Anu, for your presentation, and we'll hope to hear from Group 2 to see how it goes here. Mr. Hussein, over to you. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Joe. I'm still calling up on the two members. If you're available, you can start your PowerPoint presentation.
Okay. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. Okay, I'm
Good
unable to
afternoon.
share it because it's telling me on unsupported format.
Okay, you can't share your screen.
Yes, sir. I've been trying since.
Okay, you can just ask somebody from your group to help you share your screen or send it to me.
Okay, share it and I can.
You can send it to me, so I'll share it for you. Do you understand? Are you on the call?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I can't hear you clearly. Your voice is cracking. Can anybody hear her? I don't know. I can't hear her.
She's on mute.
Okay, before pending when she'll come back to the call, we are moving on to the picture session. We take screenshots of the meeting today and post on our social media platform, telling our friends what we've learned about the program and how the program went, and tagging our mentors also. So I encourage everybody to put on their videos. I'll be taking some screenshots. You can also take some screenshots from your own end. That will take in like 60 seconds. Thank you very much as you turn on your video. Yeah. Please, you can smile for the camera, please. Okay. Okay, I've gotten some screenshots. I think that will be enough. So quickly we'll be moving on to the question and answer session. Encouraging all the mentees to raise their hand if you have any question for our mentors. When you raise your hand, I'll call on you to ask your question before I read out the question that was sent before the meeting. So anybody with any question regarding the topic for today, please kindly raise your hand and I'll call on you to ask your question. We are still waiting for group 2, please. Group 2 presenter or backup presenter. Are you on the call? So sad. Group 2 members, you guys are not responding. Okay, I'll quickly read the questions that were sent before the meeting. So Ms. Nowazi will go first in answering, and Mr. George, then Mr. Joe. The question is, what is needed for growth in FinTech for someone who wants to start a career in FinTech? Ma, did you get the question?
Yes, so I think your question was what is needed in FinTech, especially with the growth of FinTech.
Someone that wants to start a career in FinTech.
So I think what is needed, especially before they jump in, is to do some background research to understand what are the future trends of FinTech globally, and then look at the FinTech landscape within Nigeria and see where the linkages are, so that they're not misaligned with the growth trends in Nigeria and the growth trends in the world. I think that would be the best starting point to understand then what are the new business models, what are the new technologies that are available, and what new products are being released into the market, and also in understanding that, making sure that they understand the Nigerian context, so that they're not joining the fintech market and introducing new products or building a new business model that's not providing products that are not needed in Nigeria or products that are not fit for purpose, because there's no reason to solve a problem that's not there. This is something we saw a lot in Eswatini when we ran our first FinTech challenge. A lot of our participants were proposing products for problems that were not there in Eswatini, or products that were not feasible because the ICT infrastructure was just not ready to meet those products. And so those are key considerations. They need to do the background research and then look to themselves and their team to see if they've got the technical know-how to build the product that they want to build, or the new business model, or use the new technologies available. I mean, now we can't deny that we're living in a world of AI. ChatGPT has taken the world by storm. Some see it as a threat, some see it as like, I recently read an article from Forbes, from the Brookings Institute, where they were discussing whether ChatGPT is a friend or foe. And the conclusion was, you can see it as a friend, especially to encourage critical thinking. So in part of the research, someone wanting to join FinTech could do some research on ChatGPT to encourage their own critical thinking, to see where do the gaps lie within my market, and then investigate further through their own research and conducting surveys and so on, like small sample surveys, to make it inexpensive for them, to see, okay, this is where our niche is, this is how we can meet the needs of the people and still develop scale and grow and be sustainable as joining FinTech within Nigeria under the segments that are identified in Nigeria. So I think that would be my advice for starting up. Then obviously, as they think about longevity, they're looking about scaling, looking at sustainable methods, especially as now the whole world is thinking about climate change and being green and using sustainable methods to grow. And obviously, I think it was Joseph who said so. Looking for his name. Yes, Joseph, it was you who said that some of the people want to join FinTech, they come and they think they can join alone. And that's another challenge that they need to understand, that they need to join as a team. You can't come there and want to register alone, the entity, as you join FinTech. There's a saying, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And that is a key understanding, that if you're new in FinTech, find other like-minded people and you will go far in your endeavor. That would be my advice.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Mr.
Thank
George
you.
can also answer the question.
The question is, what again? How someone can thrive in doing a FinTech, right?
Yes.
Okay. The answer to that question, or the answers to that question, it's an interesting dynamic around what are the success factors for running a FinTech business. For me, and from a mirage of experience around being, at the center of this industry, I think it starts with the problem. A lot of people get into the fancy nature or the facade of being a tech founder. They think it's about the technology. right? Because it's called FinTech. The technology is, it's not even the second part, it's the third part of that equation, or even the fourth part, if I might say. It starts with the problem, the customer, right? What exactly are you trying to solve? What pain points are you trying to solve? Is it an urgent problem? Is it a problem that is recurring? Is it a need, or is it a nice to have improvement on something that exists? The 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 problem is likely not to change over a short period of time. So you need to be a student of the problem. Because if you focus on the technology or on the product, I can tell you that 99.9% of fintech founders, right? The solution that hits the market that the users use is not the first version of that solution that they built. A lot of iterations are going to happen by the time you leave your decks, right, where you're thinking about the idea in your mind, and when you start executing, and then you start finding a lot of things that you didn't know that were factors, a lot of things that you didn't consider. Those realities will start happening when you start interacting with the market. And of course, that would change the product from the initial thought that you have. And that is why the product is the last part of that equation. It's first about the problem, then the business model. How will this be sustainable? Who would pay for this product? This problem that I'm solving or that I want to solve with technology, who's going to pay for it? How am I going to be sustainable, right? You see a lot of people that also get into or start thinking about, coming into the fintech space, and they're not thinking about the business model. They're just thinking about building an app, right? And call themselves, CEO or co-founder, right? And those are part of the things I call the CEO, the CEO of Nothing Enterprises, right? You just have a fancy app. You don't have a business. They're two totally different things. So what is the business model? How would this translate to Naira and Kobo? How would it translate to dollars? How will it translate to euros? Who is going to pay for it? If you don't understand how money is going to be made with that solution, you're wasting your time because it's not sustainable. Somebody has to pay for the product. Even for when you're using a product, when you say that your product is free to use, somebody is paying for it somewhere. When you use Facebook for free, somebody is paying for your usage of Facebook for free. Advertisers are paying Facebook so that they can offer you Facebook for free because they need your data, to be able to serve advertisers, a platform that they can reach you with. So they're bringing you on there. So somebody is always paying for a product in a value chain. So understanding who are your users and who are your customers. Sometimes they're one and the same people. Sometimes they're two totally different people, right? Before you now come to the technology of how you're going to make this work. So if you're thinking about doing a startup and you're thinking about, doing a successful business, it is doing a startup or being or launching a fintech. It's not the same as launching an application or solution. Your solution or an application will graduate into becoming a fintech business. But you don't have a fintech business just because
I think we lost Mr. George. Can we all hear him?
No.
Okay. Mr. Joe, please, you can step in. Depending
No.
when he comes back to complete his comments.
All right. The major. Okay, you can read the question again if that's okay. That's fine.
Okay, what is needed for growth in fintech? Like for someone who wants to start a career in fintech?
Okay, well, the first thing I would say for somebody who wants to start a career in fintech is fintech is actually beyond the technology. It's beyond the technology. It's still is the finance in it. You know, the only difference is the tech. And as we all know, fintech is in diverse. There are diverse ambits to fintech. When you think of fintech, beyond all the wealth tech, digital banking, lending, insurtech, there are several ambits of of the services that people can actually render within the fintech space. So, like Mr. George said, one statement that I would personally take away from today's session is he said, "Be the student of the problem." You know, even if you look at the legal aspect of engaging within the fintech space, for example, you can say, okay, I want to play in the fintech advisory aspect of it. I want to be a fintech consultant for microfinance banks. I want to be a fintech advisor for fintech investment companies. I want to provide boardroom services for fintech companies. There are a lot of things. Just look at a company. Look at the likely problems that company can have from a legal standpoint. You can even go online and look at some startups, across US, UK, Europe, and all that. Look at maybe job descriptions. From there you can be able to tell, okay, what are the challenges that fintech companies can be having. Then you need to build up your skills profile within that area. That's actually very key, and that's also you being problem minded, you being a student of the problem, and not necessarily just delving into a sector because maybe people are actually talking about it, and you've heard that people are really making money from it. You need to understand how the sector works. You need to spend time. If you need to shut down for 3 months or 6 months, you shut down, maybe you have some funds that can take you that period, and you tell yourself, I want to understand how the central bank actually works. I want to know how the lawyers engage within, the entire CBN structure. You can do that for NOTAP. That if you're in Nigeria, you can also look at your country. If you are not in Nigeria, look at all the regulators within the fintech space in your country. Pick the one that is most interesting to you and just engage yourself. Understand how those regulators actually do what they do. Then you begin to have maybe a series of stakeholder engagements. You need to know people on the inside that'll be willing to take your hand through to solve certain problems. So that's actually very key. Once you can this is just like a basic entry point. If you don't want to go in maybe as a tech person, or maybe as a marketer, a salesperson, or you don't want to play any other role, but you want to be focused on things relating to legal and advisory and all that, then you need to find out what these companies actually do. What are the likely problems that they have? How do the regulators intervene with what they do? Then start networking. But first, you must be a student of the problem, and you must understand the system. You must understand how the system actually works. Once you have that, you can actually go further than you even think. You'll be shocked what you find out there once you start engaging.
Thank you very much, Mr. Joe, for that wonderful answer. I think Mr. George also joined the call back, so I don't know if he still wants to complete his answer before we move forward. Mr. George. Okay, and Group 2 leader also texted me that they are ready. So Group 2, you can also give us your presentation before we end the call. Group 2, are you still ready?
This again.
We can't hear you. I'm just seeing your screen. I don't I don't hear you talking. You can unmute yourself and start talking, please.
Is there somebody else in group 2 that can actually take that presentation? I'm also a moderator on the program. You know, if there's somebody else that was part of, you know, making the presentation happen, because your network is not clear, it's breaking a whole lot. So if there's someone else, somebody who loves to take challenges of this kind and who is willing to be a hero out of this situation in group 2, please step up, take charge, and deliver the content, deliver the presentation, please.
Sorry, hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes,
I
we
don't
can
think
hear
she
you.
can. I don't think she can actually share the slides. So I don't know if the coordinator can help us. Then I'll try to take it from here.
Mr. Hussein, is this something you can do for us? Maybe to share the slides from
Yeah,
the
I can share
WhatsApp
the
page,
slide.
I
I can
think.
share the slide, sir. I can share the slide. I'm trying to stop the person sharing the screen, please. Please, you can stop sharing your
Okay.
screen.
Group 2 will have to compensate us for waiting for them like this. So you send us,
Okay.
maybe you send us Bitcoins to everybody so that we can be properly compensated for having to wait on you.
I don't know. Is this how your PowerPoint presentation looks? That's how it's showing on my device.
Good afternoon.
Who is that?
Everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon.
Your voice is cracking. We can't hear you clearly.
Is that a backup presenter for group 2?
I think someone else should present on behalf of group 2 because the presentation is also not opening correctly on my phone.
Okay, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Okay, so I'm actually waiting for the slide sheet. So I'm going to be discussing on legal development of FinTech. That is acquiring talent. So, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, but your network is bad.
Oh, okay. So, sorry. So, can the slide be moved to the next one? Okay, so the talents needed by FinTech companies. So we're going to be looking at what FinTech companies should consider legally when hiring. Then the two cases are going to be in this week also the same. So it's like this. Can the slide be moved? So moving on to the third slide. Introduction, talents needed by FinTech company. On that, we have cyber security, artificial intelligence, and I can't really see it. Then moving on, I hope you all can see it, but it's not really clear. Hello.
Yes, you can see.
Okay, so moving on, fintech is actually focused industry, which is taking over the business in mostly traditional banks and other financial institutions. Fintech is a fusion of two words, which is finance and technology. It can be described as a new technology that seeks to improve and also automate the delivery and use of financial services away from traditional banks and their analog methods of rendering financial services. Fintech companies are focused on redefining financial industry by leveraging the digital economy to provide financial investment, credit, and payment systems that are electronic, quick, and easy to access. At its core, it is a need of to help companies, business owners, and consumers okay, acquiring talent. In a business environment, hiring the right talent is almost as difficult as raising capital requires. Hiring requires certain concentration and a certain level of potential employer as process able to fit the work environment. Fintech being an innovation. So can you go back? Hello. Thank you. So fintech being an innovation in the financial technology space requires flexible, dynamic, innovative, tech-savvy, and creative individuals. According to Robert Walters' FinTech Talent Report 2022, the fastest growing skill or talent required in FinTech includes cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, and machine learning, DevOps, software development, operations, fundraising, and a host of other services. We will now be briefly discussing a number of these talents. So the fourth slide, I think. So customer experience, according to Walt Disney, who is actually the owner of Disneyland, said you can design, create, and build the most wonderful place in the world, but it is possible, but it takes people to make the dream a reality. So you actually need people to create. You don't just need people. You actually need people. Customer experience and professionals and use valuable feedback from the customers or users to sort the kind of user-friendly interface, develop customer service strategies, and conduct user research. So your customer experience is also vital in moving your tech business, in moving. It's actually your customer experience is actually needed in fintech development. So next slide. Next slide, please. Okay, thank you. FinTech talent is cyber security. FinTech companies could with large amount of data, so they are a prime target for cyber attacks. Cyber security professionals ensure that user data are free and secure from hackers and other individuals that may seek to compromise such data. So a talent that is really, really needed in fintech development is cyber security, because every potential individual actually make use of technology. So they need cyber security. This skill is required in order to secure information systems. This can include everything from working with firewall to develop encryption algorithm. It includes everything from creating incident response, managing user access, control lists, and monitoring or responding to security threats. We can move to the next slide. Next slide, please. So another is fundraising and digital marketing specialist. Fundraising professional work with investors to secure funding for the fintech company. It is also an essential that fundraising professionals get a well-designed deck, impressive data visualization, and also the soft skills to enable them communicate the vision, persuade and pitch the company vision to investors. Software development, no doubt, are at the forefront of fintech and innovations that have been introduced into financial sector in recent times. Every fintech platform has need of software developer for obvious reasons. So either is operation managers. They actually develop and launch new products and features that relate to fintech. The efforts impact all other stakeholders, such as legal and compliance. Operations managers are required for leading large projects that involves different parts of the company. Their responsibilities, amongst others, include prioritizing, developing, and launching new products and features that relate to fintech. The adverse effect of poor operation is reduction in productivity. Another is soft skill for fintech include analytical ability, technical expertise, problem-solving skills, leadership ability, communication skills, flexibility and skills. We'll go on to the next slide.
Sorry to interrupt you. You have just 60 seconds left for your presentation. Please kindly
okay, sir.
Summarize.
Okay, sir. So let's just move to the I think to second to the last slide. So the cases that the other one, the cases that addresses this topic, which is CBN versus FinTech company. On August 1722, a federal court in Abuja granted ex parte, which is an order freezing the account of singular fintech companies for 180 days. Now, if you notice, the one of the freeze the account was talent. When it comes to using talent properly, they actually didn't use it in a proper way. In a proper way that's illegal to CBN as a whole. Then the Bankman case. Remember, to the largest crypto exchange, FTX, with allegations of mismanagement of investors, monitoring the founder of the exchange, Sam Bankman-Fried, he was also arrested and is being tried on appropriation and money laundering charges. So the both of them, they actually have two things that are actually similar, which when it comes to using talents, when it comes to
are you done?
So in conclusion, sorry, sir. In conclusion, the fintech company is set to revolutionize managing our money. That when it comes to attracting and retaining top talents, individuals who wish to be a part of this growing and innovative part of the economy will need to consider the talent as well as the skill discussed above. So when it comes to hiring employers in fintech company, they must look for those who are very skilled in talent. So also there is need for fintech companies to take seriously the issue of cybersecurity, data protection, regulatory compliance, and other legal considerations discussed above. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I can't pronounce that your name because I think we were advised earlier to edit your name. I can see Tilo there. I know that's not your real name.
Oh.
And please, what's your name?
Toby.
Okay, thank you very much, Toby, for stepping in on behalf of Group 2 and presenting for them. Personally, I think your PowerPoint presentation is rich, and I don't know why your group members are shying away from it. So thank you very much, all the group members for your work. Thank you very much, Ms. Nowazi and Mr. George, for joining us today. We are so happy to have you here with us. And the case study, I think Mr. George has final comments to make, and the case study was talking about was also has also been presented by Group 2. So Mr. George, if you are still on the call with us, you can give us your final comments before we leave the meeting.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes, you can hear you, sir.
My network was struggling. Yeah. Okay. I think just as a last comment, the last presentation, maybe because the network, there was a lot of static, so it didn't come out very clear. But the presentation itself, I could see the slides and all that. But just to say that everyone that's part of this, the mentees, taking this first step to even get into a program like this, I've already showed where your mindset is. So you're already winning by taking that very first step and that very first leap into joining a program like this. And I just want to encourage all of them to keep it up. But beyond just joining, beyond participating, they should set a clear goal for themselves to say, after this program, what am I going to do next? How am I going to play in this space? What am I going to make of this education and this knowledge that I've gained from this program? So they have already started the journey. They've already differentiated themselves from a lot of their other colleagues out there that haven't taken the initiative to join a program like this. So just to say congratulations, to them in advance for all the knowledge and all the guidance that they're going to receive. But most importantly is what goal they set for themselves they want to take from this program, and they want to use it in their journey to become that go-to legal professional they want to play, both in the fintech industry and in the general business sector, whether fintech or other allied industries. And a very big congratulations to JIIPCC. You guys are doing amazing. It takes a whole lot to put a program like this together. So congratulations to you guys for yet another successful program to really bring guidance, and direction to a lot of young legal minds out there. So congrats, Julian and team. Well done. Thank you. I hope I was heard. My network has, because I'm on the road. So.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I was saying Mr. Joe is going to give us the final closing remarks before we end the session for today. Mr. Joe.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Hussein, for being the engine, putting the entire structure together for today's first meeting. On behalf of the entire JIIPCC team, I want to say a very big thank you to our mentors, Nowazi, Mr. George. Thank you so very much. I know that on a Saturday, when you ought to be resting and chilling and relaxing, you took out time to be here today. We don't take that for granted. We're very grateful for the time that you spent with us today on today's program. To our presenters, Group 1 and 2, thank you for taking the bull by the horn and for making your presentations. I know that for Group 2, I hope that next week, we would do a whole lot better. we'll do the best that we can to ensure that we're able to put our group on the spotlight and on the limelight. And also, let's be aware that this program is actually streamed live. There's so much value within today's session. We would see what we can do as JIIPCC to see how we can bring highlights of today's program. We compress that maybe into a 3 to 4, 5 minutes video to see how we can just have a summary of the take home from today's session. But by and large, I want to congratulate all the teams for putting your heads together, doing the research. Teamwork is actually not easy. It's easier said than done. Thank you for actually making today really worthwhile. And I just want to wish everyone today on the program a very wonderful weekend. Do find time to relax and rest before Monday is already very close around the corner. So thank you very much. On behalf of JIIPCC, thank you. Juliana sends her regards as well. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah. Cheers.
Bye, everyone.
Yeah, bye.